Is my presentation coming through?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, good. Okay, good. Then welcome. Good morning, everyone, to the session effectively using Azure DevOps in Microsoft Teams. So what we're going to talk about today is a couple of things. First of all, just going to give everyone a very quick update again on what is DevOps generally and what is Azure DevOps, so that we're all basically more or less on the same level. Well, I assume that many of you actually know it already. I just want to make sure everyone knows the basics. We'll then actually have a very quick look at Microsoft Teams again. I'll show it then later as well. And then obviously we will look at how you can use Azure DevOps in Teams. Where does it make sense to integrate the two of them? What kind of possibilities there are? What kind of opportunities there are? That will be a bit of general theoretic information. Then I'll just do a lot of demos towards the second half of this session. That's basically the demos, and at the end, then you will basically have the answer. You will have the possibility to ask me some questions, and I will try to answer them as possible. About myself, so I'll just give a very quick intro. So my name is René Modery. I'm an Office apps and services MVP since 2012. I come from a SharePoint-based background. When SharePoint was moved into the cloud to Office 365, I started to obviously get interested in Office 365. Office 365 got a bit bigger. It's no longer just Exchange, Link, and SharePoint. Now we've got Teams, we've got the Power Platform, we've got so many other opportunities now in Office 365. I'm still very much interested in it. I'm constantly supporting it. That also brings me back to my daily job. So I'm working actually at a very large company called GAB2020. I'm working as the APAC Office 365 project manager. So any kind of Office 365 related projects, initiatives basically run through my desk, you could say. And then I'm trying to support the colleagues in the region. So also can be anything related or touching Office 365. Again, could be Teams, could be Power Platform, etc. And chances are then, for example, that I then also sometimes look a bit at related services, mostly on the Microsoft stack, like what's available also in Azure a bit, if it can support basically Office 365 in some way or the other way around. You can contact me on Twitter or follow me on Twitter if you want. My blog is also listed here, modery.net. If you look up my name, I can easily be found also on LinkedIn and other places, so feel free to reach out to me after this session. So to get started, again, very basic information. What is DevOps? So on the right side, you can see a longer text. So the key part is really DevOps is the union of people, process, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to our end user. Sorry, just 1 second. My son needs some help. Here we go. What are you doing? Okay, let me just continue a bit while I'm a bit distracted. So what we are looking at basically is making sure that development and operations, they actually work very closely together. You no longer have a development team and you've got an operations team. So the developers hand over the code to the operations team and the operation team then deploys it. And then at some point the development team gets feedback. But rather you've got this continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous monitoring of things. So that the idea is then you're no longer just working in very long and slow cycles, but rather you've got very fast deployments, very fast tests, you've got very fast feedback that you receive, and then can update again your plans, can update your code again, build it, and move again through that cycle. Goal is really that with all these processes and updated practices, you deliver a much better product in the end. So instead of taking months to develop something where then the end user says, oh, that's not quite what I wanted, or so, you will have relatively soon feedback that can be incorporated in your product. How do you achieve DevOps then? So there are a couple of things that I just already mentioned. So one of those is actually you want to have continuous integration as mentioned. So whenever there's new code, whenever there's something new that you want to basically make sure that it's working properly, etc., you just basically have a build generated. Can be on a manual basis, but more likely it's obviously automated. Could be, for example, whenever some new code gets checked in, or whenever whenever a certain schedule is achieved. For example, every day at at midnight or so, a build gets tried, and then we'll see if it succeeds or fails. Obviously, the goal is that all the builds succeed if possible. Related to that, then you've got the continuous deployment, meaning then once you've got a build, then you're not just waiting again, oh, we're going to release it in 2 months' time or so on our test environment, and then either UT environment, and then et cetera, but rather you try to push out your latest builds, the latest code that you have relatively quickly through your different environments to make sure that it's working well in all these other environments, but also to get feedback again. So meaning you've got some updated build, you've got some updated functionality, you're no longer just waiting for a certain point in the future until you deploy then for testing by the business users, but rather you try to, if possible, deploy it successfully directly into, for example, the test environment where your business users can test it. They provide feedback. If the feedback is successful, you might actually start an approval process so that you can deploy it directly into production, meaning then that the time reduced to actually bring updated code really into a production environment is really greatly reduced. That also again brings us again to versioning. Versioning is obviously an essential part of any software development for I don't know how long, how many decades. So I think there's not much that needs to be said here. All these things that I'm talking about obviously also lead then to a more agile activity and requires more agile planning. So what you're no longer doing is you're no longer doing your very lengthy, very slow regular project management techniques, but rather you try to do your agile project management techniques. For example, you work with Kanban board to do your planning, you plan your sprints, you work with a lot of other agile and lean processes and procedures, just to make sure that the people working on those things are actually also available and ready and can really quickly push out some, develop some code very quickly, know how important, etc., etc. Coming with that is also then obviously some monitoring. So when you deploy new code, you may be happy, yes, it was deployed successfully, but you also want to make sure that any new code doesn't bring down your environment or slow it down, etc. So obviously do a lot of monitoring here as well. That should be included. Plus, you try to leverage obviously the latest technologies if possible. So a lot of public clouds allow you then, for example, to integrate directly with them. So you're no longer just working with your on-premises server that you're trying to build against and wait for results and then try to slow things down in a way, but rather the public cloud allows you to achieve a lot of what we've seen here just now, talked about here just now. And yeah, René, can you please go over there? Sit down here, okay. Okay, so how can Azure DevOps help us with that? So here we've got just an example for one of those projects in Azure DevOps. While DevOps may provide you with a lot of possibilities, it also basically enables you to get it all into one single location for a project. So you can have, for example, as we've just seen, you can have your source code here in DevOps. You can see here your repos. So there are also different locations where you can store your source code and make use of it. So you're not restricted to just one location. You can have it, for example, in GitHub. You can have it somewhere else, can be done. We can see, for example, boards. This way you can do your planning. You can have some, obviously, at the top here, you see some dashboards that you can create to get basically some updates, some information on what's actually happening there. You see your pipelines where you can schedule your deployments, your integration, etc., to make sure then once, for example, something gets checked in or on a daily basis, a new build gets generated, etc., etc. So that's all here within Azure DevOps. So hopefully that's not really new for the majority of you. I think the idea is then within Azure DevOps, you've got your code that you can work on. You can check it out, check it in. That may then trigger, for example, a new build. That may, for example, trigger some test plans that get executed, etc., etc. So the idea is then there's a whole lot of automation happening as well. Where does Microsoft Teams now fit in here? So Teams is the hub for teamwork in Microsoft 365. This is where you can go and have your team work on or collaborate on projects, initiatives, or other things, basically. It allows you to chat with others, to meet with others, call others, to share and store files, collaborate on those files, but you can also integrate apps and workflows. And that's, I think, the important thing here. The idea is then, for example, as a software development team, yes, your code, for example, lives in, let's say, GitHub. Yes, your Azure DevOps, for example, supports you in your continuous integration, in your regular deployment, in your planning, etc. But that's not all of it. There may be other things. Maybe as a team, obviously, you want to meet on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, depending on how you are situated and how you're structured. If you want to have a daily Scrum meeting, for example, if you are a distributed team working in different locations, or in the current situation, if more or less everyone is working from home, you can't just quickly meet in a meeting room for 15 minutes. No, you have to do it online. So that's what could be done, for example, in Teams. That's just one possibility, but now we want to figure out how can we integrate DevOps in Teams. So one quick basic overview again of Teams. I just mentioned you've got your teams that you can be part of. So what you have is there are a range of teams available, or you can create a range of teams in the end. I mean, there's no prescription here how it should be structured, but whenever you see or think, oh, I need a team because there's a couple of people working on, again, a project or initiative, then you can create a team. A team basically is a big container. In our scenario, let's say we're working as part of a software development team, and we're working on a specific project. You might just create one project for that one team for that particular project. If your software development team has multiple projects, you could then, for example, create multiple teams here, even though your team members are mostly the same. But the idea is you've got that clear separation between the different teams. Within a team, you actually also have channels. So channels provide you some further segregation again within a team. If you think about what's happening here, so we see this team here, for example, it's called Warehouse. It's got the general channel, which is the standard default channel, which is always there. But then you've got also, for example, incoming orders, returns, shipping updates. What does it mean now for your software development team? So you might have here, for example, a channel called Meetings. You might have a channel called Bugs, where you discuss bugs. You might have a channel called Channel Planning, where you discuss some channel planning topics, etc., etc. So it's up to you in the end how many channels you create. You can create multiple. You're not restricted to just one big central team where you discuss everything, put everything in, but rather you can also then have that smaller segregation, making it clearer. Topic A goes into channel for topic A, topic B goes into the channel for topic B, etc. And lastly, within each channel, we've got tabs. So they're at the top here of the channel, and a tab provides you with a couple of different possibilities again. There are some default tabs, most importantly, the posts and the files. So posts is the discussion tab where you can go in and talk to others. So it's a conversational tab, and other people will then, even if they join the team at a later stage, will see those discussions that happen. And files, I think, should be quite self-explanatory. So files is where you can go in, store relevant files. It's stored actually in a SharePoint site in the background, so you can leverage, again, metadata. You can leverage views. You can create folders if you want to. So those are all possible here. But you see here, and in this example, we also have Flow, Returns app, Returns Power BI, and I'm currently here in the Returns channel. So for example, the Returns app might be a specific Power app that has been created for this team here. And Power BI might be, for example, a dashboard that shows you some statistics or analytics, etc. So the tabs actually allow you to embed and show other applications, other pages, etc. within this context here. It's a bit like if you think about, for example, in your browser, you might have a favorites folder where you've got multiple favorites. Maybe you organize them, say, okay, for my Power App, I'm going to have my returns folder where I'm going to store the link to the Power App and the link to the dashboard. It's the same concept here. So it just provides your team with a very quick access. How can we now finally integrate DevOps in Teams? So there are two things that I want to talk about first quickly, and then jump in straight into our demo. First of all, we've got connectors. So connectors, actually, they allow you to connect outside services, for example, public services like Twitter, like Trello, RSS feeds, etc., within the chat stream of the team. We can see also there are also then connectors for Microsoft services. So on the left side, you can see there's also obviously the connector for DevOps. So that means what we can then do is we can connect our team to DevOps, to a specific project, or even further below, and then say, for example, what kind of triggers should cause messages to be sent to our chat stream. Sounds a bit high level right now, but once you see it in 2 minutes, I think you will get quite excited about it. And the other thing is obviously, again, the tabs that I just mentioned. So there are multiple ways multiple different tabs that you can use. So a lot of Microsoft default tabs are available. You could embed a PowerPoint presentation directly, an Excel spreadsheet, but you can also actually leverage Azure DevOps here. So what we want to do here, then obviously we want to make relevant external pages and apps available directly in the channel. And we want to provide quick access to important resources. So what we can do is, and what we'll look at is, for example, how can you use the dashboards that you have in your DevOps project, for example, and embed it here directly. But also, how can you, for example, provide some other mechanisms to show DevOps in here in Teams. So before we go to Q&A, obviously, we want to have a very big demo. So let me get started here with this one. Let me just zoom in a bit more so you can see it a bit better. So I created here this project called Project Stardust within, this team called Project Stardust within Teams. I've got my channel, I added a DevOps channel, I added a releases channel. Let me also quickly go over to Azure DevOps while I'm talking, where we've got our big project. Let me just actually go here to this. So what I have here is actually I've just took a big sample project with a lot of demo content in here and added it here to DevOps. Ideas, again, we've got a lot of code in here. We've got a lot of work items that were created. We've got pull requests. We've got commits. We've got a lot of things that actually happened and that can be worked with. Let's have a look at how we can integrate what we have here, our project, with our content, with our work items, with our boards, etc. How we can use that here in Teams. So I created 2 channels here initially. So I created my DevOps channel. Let me just show you that. And within the DevOps channel, I actually started to connect here DevOps. Let me actually just show you again how that actually works. So here for a channel, I can open the ellipsis menu and I've got the possibility here to select connectors. So let's just load that here. It's going to show me all connectors that are available, but we've also got here Azure DevOps. And I can say I want to configure this one here right now. While I configured it previously, again, there are possibilities to actually add multiple triggers here. So my connector here was already set up previously. It's connected to my account here. And what I want to do now next, obviously, I want to now select what do I want to connect to, which organization. So I've got one organization here from my DevOps environment. I want to select my project. So there may be multiple projects, but I just want to select the one that is relevant for me here right now. I can now filter further, for example, say if I've got multiple teams, I could now also select a specific team if I wanted to. In my scenario right now, I'm just going to say I'm going to show notifications from all teams. But the idea is then, for example, if you've got a very large project with multiple teams, maybe you want to have, for example, a mobile specific channel, then you could select mobile, or web specific channel if you select web. I'm just going to say any. And now the important thing, what kind of event do we want to receive notifications for within our channel here? You see there are a couple of different triggers available, and you can see actually that's all coming from DevOps here. What I talked about before, for example, when a build is completed, something should be written in our channel. So that's what you see here up here, build completed. So whenever a build completes, we will get a message in our channel here. Or whenever somebody creates a pull request, again, we want to see a notification here. And you see there's a whole range of them. Now, the important thing is that's where you need to think about which ones of those may provide value to you. So I'm not going to tell you, oh, this is what you need to use, what you should use, this one you shouldn't use at all, because it depends on your scenario. To give you an example, if you say, for example, work item updated, if you use this one here right now, I can still do some further refinements, for example, depending on the area path, the item type. So, for example, I don't want to see epics and features. Maybe I just want to see boxes, and I can choose field, etc. so that only if a specific field gets updated, I receive a notification. That's possible here, but right now I'm just going to keep this one as it is. I'm going to say whenever a work item in DevOps gets updated, I want to get a notification within Teams, obviously. So I'm going to save. So it's going to take just a couple of seconds to basically establish the connection, and now it's done. And see now, I previously configured actually some more. I configured, for example, if a work item is created, and I configured if a build is completed. Now I've also got if a work item is updated. And we've got that notification here in my channel. That looks good. I'm very happy with that. Let's just do that quickly. That's just going to take a second. I'm going to go over to my work items. I'm going to choose this first work item here, for example, that was created. And I'm going to provide some more information. Also happens for Japanese. I'm going to save it here. All good. What's going to happen over here now is just in a couple of seconds is we've got this trigger occurring. Here it is. So somebody updated the work item. There's something getting put into our channel here. That's all quite nice right now. Looks good. Oh, so I can, for example, comment on here. Oh dear, who's going to look at it? Maybe you. So I can do something like this. But you can already see what the benefit here might be. So instead of having conversations, lengthy discussions in here, if you want to have some outside conversations, for example, you can also have it then in Teams. But the concern is if I go in here right now and say, I'm going to do now, save. I'm going to say, the state is actually approved. I'm going to save again. I'm going to add system info, all platforms. I'm going to save. I just now pressed save, I think 3 times. What's going to happen is, it got triggered 3 times. It's going to fill my channel here with all those messages. That's obviously something that you want to avoid. So generally speaking, then when we come back here to our connectors, that's where you need to do a bit of planning. Which connectors do you want? Because you don't want to flood your channel with too many messages. So this updated doesn't make sense anymore. I don't want this. I'm going to delete that now because it's obviously too troublesome to keep it in here. Also important, just because I removed now the connector doesn't mean that these messages have been removed. No, they stay here, obviously. They're not getting deleted automatically. They're basically copies of, or basically not really copies, they're just basically separate messages occurring here in my channel. Now, the other thing is, what I mentioned is I added here, for example, when a build succeeds. So what I did is I've got a schedule here. Let me just go to my pipelines. So I've got this pipeline here, and let's just look at my scheduled runs. So I can see, for example, there's a next scheduled run for this evening, 8 p.m. And I set it, for example, that it should run 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And we can see, for example, yesterday, 8 p.m., there was a build that succeeded. Great, very happy about that. Here's another one, build succeeded, 8 a.m. Basically took a couple of minutes. We can see here finished within probably within 10 minutes or so. Then we're also happy about that. What can also happen is I'm just going to actually run the pipeline once to show you if it fails. So I'm just going to run it manually, and I'm running it in such a way that it's going to fail more or less straight away. Goal is basically you need to differentiate now what should happen in DevOps that you want to get absolutely notified about and what is maybe secondary information. So updated work items, maybe not so important. Yeah, when a new work item gets created, maybe you want to have a discussion, but updates not so much. Hey, but you want to get updated about the build? That sounds quite interesting, quite important, because, hey, that build that I just triggered manually, it failed. So I can see here now, oh no, what happened here? Oh dear, Megan, can you check? And here you see the benefit, for example. We receive a notification in our team here, and we can immediately then, for example, start a discussion on what's going on. So we can immediately then come in here, and have some team chat. We can get some replies. We can get some information and talk about what's happening here. So the idea is then there are some things that should not occur within Azure DevOps, for example, or there are maybe better done outside of Azure DevOps. Those can be done within teams. If you want to have some separate discussions about some activities, some items, that's where teams can be really valuable here. So again, for example, those regular builds getting monitored, perfect. We have discussions in here. You want to provide more detail about a new work item that was created? Maybe not. So let me just do that quickly. So if I go in here, work items, I'm just going to create a new work item bug. I don't know, site crashes in IE9. Not the best thing, but just going to keep that as it is. So what happens is, again, I've got here my trigger, my connector already set up, so the trigger should come in a second. Here it is. What we should not do then is, for example, here are some more details. No, obviously then that's not related or not relevant here for Teams. Well, that's quite interesting here. That's some information that should go into this ticket here, obviously, and that's why I want to have the discussion over here again. But what to, so not happy about this one here, but what we could do is, again, who can take care of it? You can actually then, again, tag people so they're aware of it, Megan or Miriam, so that they can actually jump in and will do, for example. So the idea is then, again, you have some more enriched discussions outside. Now, one important thing here, actually, what you see here is on top here, this this conversation that basically Azure DevOps, you could say, started here within my channel here. It provides me with a link here directly to the item here. I can see some details, for example, I see who created it, set priority to, made other changes. I can click on it. And that brings me again to those details here. And I can see here site crash in IE9. If I now switch over here to the other browser where I'm logged in as Megan, Megan has been added here to my team here. She's part of Project Stardust, but she does not have access to DevOps. So she does not have access to my DevOps project. Megan wants to come in here and do something. Uh-oh, I don't have access. No, that was, not good. What can I do? Somebody can help. Obviously, that's where it can help, but the goal basically, or what I'm trying to tell you is that what's happening is that DevOps basically writes some messages here into Teams, you could say. We see the information in here, but even if you're not allowed to see that information from or within DevOps, you can still see it in Teams. So there may be information that you're now surfacing to others. So you have to be careful about who has access to a team here within Microsoft Teams, and are they allowed to see basically what kind of messages get posted. For example, you might not want everybody to see the work items that get created. You might not want everybody to see the builds that get executed, etc., etc. Just have to be careful. On the other hand, it can be quite valuable also if you want to, for example, keep people informed about, for example, the builds that occur. You don't want them to see the details of, hey, that build that we had, for example, let me just switch browser again. So I've got permissions, that build here that we had, for example, that failed. Oh, obviously, all that information here, for example, is relevant for me right now. Megan may not be interested in it, but she may want to know, hey, that something happened here. And so Megan might be say, okay, the build failed, and she could, for example, say, why did it fail? Can you check that everything's working properly again, etc., without having any knowledge of those details here, but just making sure that things get executed properly. All right, so releases was similar. Basically, what I wanted to show also here previously, but we're running out of time, was that you can obviously, again, I used some connectors. You can also then, for example, whenever a new release gets published, oh, it gets added here to the releases channel, etc. What we want to now look at very quickly, because we've got 15 minutes before the next session, I think, is the Azure DevOps tab here. So again, I'm logging in here to my organization. I'm adding here a tab, logging in as Alex. Again, I'm selecting an organization. That was this one here. Oh, good. I can now select a dashboard. I can select a Kanban board. So first, I want to select a dashboard from my Stardust Smart Hotel project. The team, I can choose a dashboard type project or team. Do we have a project dashboard here? We don't, but we have one in the team. So I'm going to select my team here, for example. Now let's use, for example, the web team. They should have one, yeah, the overview dashboard. Not going to post it to the channel. I'm just going to click save. And what happens here is, sorry, that one doesn't have any widgets. That was a bad example. Let me just do the other one. Just quickly going through it again. So again, selecting organization, selecting my project, my team, selecting this one here. Yeah, that's better. And you can see I'm within Teams, but I can now see also my dashboard here. So that can be valuable if I don't want to switch to a different tab within my browser. May not be very relevant all the time, but if I can't remember the direct URL, for example, here, if I'm inside my project Stardust now here, I'm working on it. If I now quickly want to have a look at this dashboard, yes, I could open a new tab, navigate there, but the idea is then you've got you could say a quick link that brings me directly in here. Oh, build health overview. There's something that failed. We should look at it, etc., etc. I see those details. And the other thing we wanted to look at is, which we just saw here briefly as well, is then you can also add your Kanban board. So while you may not want to do all your planning directly in here, then it provides you with a very quick overview again of all the tasks, all the activities that are planned, that are in progress, etc. So now, I'm going to use this one, select the backlog level. Now we're going to use let's just use all backlog items. That should be good. Yeah, and you can see here now I can directly access our backlogs items from here. I can look at them. Once I click on this one here, you can see I can work directly here within the current channel here directly. Again, it may not always make sense to do everything within here. You may have this open anyway separately, and I can easily, and for example, I want to go to the website and open it in its own tab again. But if you just want to have a very quick look, hey, right now I'm in, for example, let's call it, if I rename it here, for example, as the managed channel. Let's keep it actually. If we assume that this is now my web channel, for example, I could now easily say I want to see all the backlog items, for example, that are currently available just for my web project. I don't want to do any big planning or so. I just want to see it. Of course, I could now easily also then do some work in here if I wanted to and say, yeah, this has been approved and this has been approved as an example. So I can, again, start my work, continue my work directly here. And that's the idea, that you bring it all together. What we obviously, again, just coming back again to the beginning, what we do not want to do is then ideally then obviously do everything in here. You can see, okay, we've got a bit, I zoomed in a bit. If I go 100%, I see it a bit better. Yeah, I can see now what's in detail here. Sometimes you may want to then obviously don't want to just see the dashboard. You want to switch, then you obviously go to Azure DevOps. That's then the last possibility. You could actually also add here, for example, a website link directly to your project. I didn't mention that earlier, but DevOps. That's the other possibility, that you can just embed the whole page in here as well. So that's a bit too simplistic. But yeah, so we're nearing actually the end. So I'm still around for a short while, also available for a few minutes if you've got any questions. Just to summarize again, using the connectors, you can send messages from DevOps to teams. So when you've got important things happening within DevOps, you can get automatic messages here into your Teams channel so that your team can actually then discuss it here separately outside of DevOps. And if anything important actually gets discussed for DevOps, you jump over again into the relevant, for example, bar to the build, etc., and do your work over there again. But the idea is then you can actually leverage your separate communications and activities in here. And you can leverage then also the tabs on top to surface dashboards and and Kanban boards in here. All right, that brings me to the end of my session. So I'm happy to answer any questions. So let me just see.
Yeah, René, can you check the chat window? There are a few.
Yeah, just looking at it here. Yeah, I'll post the links shown on the slides in a couple of seconds here once I'm done answering any other questions. So is it possible to bring members from other organizations to our Teams channels? For example, if you're a software, let's assume you're a software development team, you're working for a customer, you want to bring the customer here into your team. Yes, that's possible. So when you go to, for example, add member here, I can easily now invite somebody else. So this is now my demo company here right now. I'm not quite sure whether I set up external sharing. Okay, not possible right now. But generally speaking, it is possible to allow access for other people outside your organization to Teams. So then, for example, you could create a team where you can then discuss, I don't know, other activities in here as well. Is Megan a bot? No, that's just a separate browser here that I was using. And do you plan to share about test plan in Azure DevOps? I think that's a separate, bigger discussion, for example, how the test plans here in DevOps work. So here, for example, test plans, there's a range of possibilities here. Nothing that I can cover right now, but I'm going to share it actually with the other MVP community here. If you're interested in it, I'm sure there are a couple of other guys who will happily talk about it in one of our upcoming sessions. So maybe in one of the upcoming online Azure user groups that we'll have, that's one of the possible topics. All right, anything else you want to know? Just post it in the chat. In the meantime, I'll quickly open this one here. If you want to give us your feedback, and we hope you're going to give us your feedback, there's the QR code for you to scan. I'm going to post a link here as well. So it got a bit big, but you can now see it definitely. Let us know how this session went, how the overall event went. We want to hear your feedback, obviously. Hope that you enjoy your day here with us. And yeah, other than that, we've got a few more minutes. I'm still going to stay around. I'm just going to mute myself right now then. If you've got any more questions, I'll unmute myself, answer it. Other than that, thanks for joining. Hope you learned something new. Hope you got some new ideas, and hopefully you can start leveraging some of those capabilities and possibilities in your organization as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much, René. So everyone, René would be there for another few minutes. So in case any questions, you just type in there. I will convey him, or he can check the chat window. Okay, thank you for joining. Stay tuned for the next session. Thank you, guys.